Hello, and welcome to the Gale Blade News. Spain has said outbreaks of new COVID-19 cases are isolated and under control after the UK abruptly ordered people coming from the country to quarantine. Infections have risen sharply in Spain recently as restrictions were eased. Some regions have now imposed measures, including making face masks mandatory. Spain is safe for Spaniards and for tourists, the Foreign Ministry said. Contagion among young people who have been gathering in larger numbers appears to be a particular worry. France and Germany have also both seen new cases rise as nations grapple between staving off fresh outbreaks and reopening economies. The UK's move to require arrivals from Spain to self-isolate for 14 days came into effect on Sunday, just hours after the change was announced, angering travellers and travel operators. The airline industry reacted with dismay, calling it a big blow. The UK's biggest tour operator, TUI, has cancelled all mainland Spanish holidays until the 9th of August. British Airways is still operating flights, but said the move was throwing thousands of Britons' travel plans into chaos. However, UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab defended the swift action. Spain has more than 272,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases and some 28,400 deaths, according to Johns Hopkins University research, and is one of the European countries worst affected by the virus. The number of cases there has tripled in 2 weeks, with more than 900 new infections reported on Friday. How has Spain compared to the rest of Europe? Its rate of cases per 100,000 people is currently at 39.4, according to the European Union's European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control. This compares with the UK's rate of 14.6. Spain is now comparable with Sweden and Portugal, but rates there are falling while Spain's is on the rise. Romania at 59.7 and Bulgaria at 44.8 are considerably higher. Luxembourg is far higher, but the number there may be skewed because of its smaller population. As seen in other countries reporting a spike in infections, the majority of new cases in Spain seem to be restricted to a few regions, including Catalonia, where Barcelona is located, and Aragon. On Sunday, Spanish Foreign Minister Arantxa González Laya said the outbreaks were perfectly controlled and that they had been expected once the restrictions were lifted. Half of those who are COVID positive in Spain are asymptomatic, which gives a very clear indication of the huge efforts that all the regions in Spain are undertaking to test for COVID in its citizens, she said. Ms. González said the Canary and Balearic Islands, which are popular with tourists, have not recorded a resurgence in infections, insisting they were very safe territories. She added that the authorities would try to convince the UK government to exclude them from quarantine. London's decision to reintroduce quarantine restrictions on travellers from Spain is a new devastating blow for the country's tourism industry. We know what British tourism means for our country, and particularly for our region, said the Vice President of Andalusia, Juan Marin. He described it as very bad news, particularly for the Costa del Sol, where many British tourists tend to spend their holidays. The number of British tourists who have come to Spain this summer are much lower than normal, but there are still thousands of holidaymakers here who have been surprised and frustrated by the UK's decision. Some tourist hubs have already been affected by the recent spike in coronavirus cases. This weekend, the Catalan government ordered the temporary closure of all nightclubs as it attempts to stem the spread of the virus among young people, which has been a particular problem. French Prime Minister Jean Castex has strongly recommended that French citizens avoid going to Catalonia. Norway has reimposed a 10-day quarantine on people arriving from Spain. Belgium has banned travel to Huesca and Lleida, with recommendations against travel to a number of other areas in Spain. Germany has not imposed any measures against those arriving from Spain specifically, although the government advises tourists against travel to the Balearic Islands, Navarra, Catalonia and Aragon. Earlier this week, the government announced all travellers would be able to voluntarily access free COVID-19 tests after arriving in Germany. So, what do you think of this? Have you been stuck in Spain? Are you going to be one of those who's forced to self-isolate? Or are you one of those people who think, actually, similar to me, They got what they deserved. They made a determination to travel outside of their country, and it's their own fault for doing so. When, especially for me, I'm seeing the UK starting to reduce in its numbers. My biggest concern is of the second wave, because we've had far more deaths than many of the countries out there. I know partly that's our own fault, because the decisions from our leaders hasn't been particularly great, but I still don't want it to get any worse. Whatever you think, leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.